Have you guys made a decision yet?
I don't even know who this guy is. He just looked so comfortable. I wanted to try it out.
The Mattress Gallery at Crandall's Home Furnishings. The brands you're looking for at the price you want. In memory foam, pillow top, and more. Crandall's Home Furnishings. Always home to the ultimate value.
Well, Marshall County came into Reed Stadium Friday night, play the host Panthers. This was a huge matchup in 6A when you talk about playoff ramifications, particularly for the Panthers. Let's take a look at the highlights from this game. This was a game that, coming in, we basically said Daviess County must win this game to make the playoffs.
Right.
Now, we'll talk about the ramifications of it in a minute, but 20-13, Marshall County wins on a touchdown with 2:01 to play. The first thing we have to say is Daviess County really made a good accounting of themselves in this game.
Yeah, they stepped up tremendously, especially coming off of a tough loss to Apollo. I don't think anybody really knew what their mindset was going to be, that kind of thing. Defensively, they played very, very well. Darius Cricht did some good things. They struggled to run the ball also, and I think that puts a tremendous amount of pressure on a sophomore quarterback. Plus, he threw 2 interceptions early and then a third one late that kind of set up the game-winning drive or whatever. But
Marshall County had turnover issues of their own, though. There's, we have to give credit to DC's defense,
yes, very much so. I mean, I think Daviess County's defense played well enough for them to win the game. They just, they couldn't get that last stop, but they did force some turnovers. They made plays when they had to, it seemed like, during much of the game, and I think it was very, very disappointing for the defensive side of the ball for them to, be able to hang in like they did.
Right.
And Marshall County still comes away with the victory.
I think it speaks to Daviess County's mental approach that they were able to come back from what, without a doubt, was a very disappointing performance against Apollo and really bring it in this game and have a chance to get the win right down until the very end. I mean, they have the ball with just a little over a minute left, and they just can't quite make that last drive.
Exactly.
But they were right there, and that speaks to them being ready mentally, I think, that it was this tough a game.
Oh, very much so. Like I said, I'm not really sure what anybody thought, where Daviess County would come out because the Apollo game is so big to them and that kind of thing. Plus the fact that, Marshall County had hammered on Apollo, and there was a lot of thought that might happen in this game also. But I think Daviess County took it to them from the beginning, which I think was essential for them to stay in the game.
Right. So Marshall has 189 yards, had 150 passing, 189 rushing. DC a total of 173 yards. I think that's the main problem for DC is they're just not able to consistently move the chains like they need to take some pressure off the defense.
No, and Cricht, he can make a big pass every now and then. He can make a good play, but they do not have – their offensive sets do not seem to, like you're saying, generate, 4 yards, 8 yards, that kind of thing. It's like all or nothing with them. They're hitting a 20 or a 30-yard pass, or they're not able to move the ball at all, and I think that's become a huge issue, obviously.
Right. Well, we're going to talk about Daviess County's playoff, where they stand playoff implication-wise, but first let's talk about the last game from this past weekend, and that was McLean County facing up against Muhlenberg County. It was a matchup of winless teams to this point. Muhlenberg gets the 42-2 win. Dalton Oliver, a big game with 5 touchdown passes. Margin surprise you?
A little bit. I thought McLean might be able to score a little bit more on them. I thought Muhlenberg would win the game simply, 6A versus 3A or whatever. But Muhlenberg evidently got some things going offensively. I mean, Oliver's been kind of hot and cold too. He's had some games where he really went, really did well, and then he's had some games where he struggled tremendously. I think that Muhlenberg is still struggling with the running game also.
Oh, I don't think there's any question about that. I am surprised, though, that McLean wasn't able to get really anything going offensively because, as we know, Muhlenberg's defense has given up some points this year. So I thought – McLean just likes to just run right at you. I mean, that's their thing, is they're a power running game. And I thought they would have some success at that. So that kind of surprises me. But you just don't know about a team, where they stand at this point when they're so low on numbers. They haven't won a game to this point. You're dealing with so many factors at that point. You just don't know to expect from week to week at that junction.
No, I think McLean is, there's probably some mindset of let's get to the end of the season and then start getting ready for, trying to prepare ourselves and make ourselves better for 0-11.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question about that. It's only natural when you're at this juncture of the season this way. Let's talk about some playoff things just briefly here. Let me throw this at you. Fort Campbell beats Todd 61-0. I think we both kind of felt like Catholic Hancock was a district championship game in some ways. Do we reassess that? Is Fort Campbell more in play here than we're giving them credit for, you think? Because they played a tough schedule.
They probably are. They played a very tough schedule at the beginning. They had some key injuries early in the season, too. They've got some personnel back now that I don't think they had before. And I think that what Chris Morris said about Fort Campbell was they've still got a lot of speed. They can still hurt you. I think John Edge is kind of the opinion they are still very good, but they are not the unbeatable team that they have been the last 3 years. So I think there's kind of a different outlook as far as the two teams, how they view Fort Campbell. Catholic has to go to Fort Campbell. They're going to have to prove that they can win on that field against a lot of there's still quite a few personnel for Fort Campbell that they've had.
Right. Catholic has a ton of motivation, though, knowing that if they beat Fort Campbell, they are going to be district champions. There's no way they're going to lose to Todd.
No,
so, I mean, that is going to be for the district championship game at that point,
I would think so.
Let's talk about 6A. Henderson beats Graves. So you now have Graves and Apollo sitting there with 2 wins in the 6A district.
Right.
Daviess County doesn't have any wins. DC has Muhlenberg and Graves left. DC can only make the playoffs if they win their last 2 games in district, I'm talking about.
Right.
And Graves and Apollo lose the rest of their games, so you have that 3-way tie with those 2-win teams.
Right.
Because you've already got Marshall and Henderson with 3 wins.
Sure.
They're
in.
They're in. Can DC pull this off, or is the Graves game just going to be too much?
Everything I've heard about Graves is that they have very good offense, and I mean that's going to be hard for Daviess County to keep up with. Now, Marcus Kimbrell was saying, Friday night, even after they got beat, he was like, anything can happen. So I don't think he's.
You never say
You
never say that. And I think it helps them that they have Muhlenberg before Graves.
Oh, there's no doubt.
I mean, once you can post that win, and then assuming Graves and Apollo are still sitting there at 2 wins, then you really do feel more like you have a chance to get in this thing if you can beat Graves.
Right.
Now, you're going to need help.
Yeah.
Understand, you're going to need help.
There's no doubt.
But anything is possible. We've seen that over and over again. Talk about 5A. Madisonville North Hopkins beats Hopkinsville by 4, 28-24. Hopkinsville only has 1 district game left, and that's against Owensboro. So the best they can do is 1 win. So this loss actually sealed Ohio County being in the playoffs because they would have the head-to-head over Hopkinsville.
Yes, very much
with the
so.
1 win. So congratulations to Todd Houston's team to make the playoffs. Here's the question I have for you. Jim Pickens is huge on Madisonville North Hopkins. Madisonville North Hopkins only beat Hopkinsville by 4 points, but yet they played Christian County to within 3 points. Who is Madisonville North Hopkins? I'm having a hard time figuring that out.
They must be a team that plays well under the brightest lights, which means when they play,
or they're a team that plays to their competition.
That plays their competition, one or the other. It may be a little bit of a mix of both. I don't think they're as good personnel-wise as what they've shown in their games against like Christian County. But if they are a big game kind of team, then Owensboro's going to have to come to play.
Yeah. Well, it's always interesting when we get down to these scenarios where we kind of start seeing where people fit in, and we're going to talk more about that Thursday.
Right.
So that's it for today's show. We do appreciate you watching, and we'll be back at 2 o'clock Thursday talk about some really interesting matchups coming up this weekend. So until then, thanks for watching.